Greetings, Dr. Will here. Welcome back to the serialization of What You Don't Know, Successfully Lead a Software Project Without Tech Expertise. Episode 13, Chapter 5, What Exactly Are We Building? Vision and Requirements, Part 2. Requirements are often described hierarchically, beginning with broadly stated capabilities, features, that address specific needs of the customer or end user. Each such feature describes a series of related interactions with the system that produce some result of value for the customer or end user. The structure of this information guides the construction of the system. The feature set that addresses and resolves customer problems provides value by alleviating pain points or providing gains to them. Each of these features entails a series of activities. These descriptions are often called use cases. They may include not only the main flow of the interaction, which is the success case, but also any number of alternative related flows or those related to accommodating possible or likely error situations. Use cases can be used directly to develop a system. Because they may be of a rather broad scope, agile methods, which we'll describe later, can make use of these statements as descriptions of high-level initiatives or a bit lower-level, narrower scope epics. The teams working in these methods will further decompose the use cases into user stories that are small enough to be quickly implemented and tested. Depending on the system's overall complexity, an initiative may take quarters or even years to complete. Independent parts of the initiative structured as epics and taking only months or quarters to complete may and should be delivered from time to time, building up to the completed initiative. The epics that constitute the initiative consist of user stories or tasks. These may take weeks or a month to complete. They're further broken down into user stories or tasks that should be completed in weeks. Roughly speaking, a user story should take no longer than a sprint, which we also describe later, or roughly 2 to 3 weeks to complete. Completing means that the feature or initiative, the use case or epic, and the user story or task are documented, coded, tested, merged and integrated into the entire system, and ready for deployment to the customer during the next release. The documentation, code, test cases, and other relevant information are also placed under configuration management. The project plan and roadmap describe in what order the system's constituent parts will be built. The ever-popular MVP development effort should implement the minimum set of user stories constituting the partial completion of high-value epics, comprising the partial completion of high-value initiatives, ultimately providing enough value to the early adopter customers to keep the business in business. Beyond that, specific architectural epics should also be included in the release plan. The architecture, see the next chapter, should be validated early and often to ensure that an expensive and disruptive re-engineering effort does not have to take place early in the product's lifecycle. Expensive and disruptive meaning a potential existential threat that could crater a nascent SaaS business. Documentation and communication. One thing that agile methods seem to loathe is documentation. Unfortunately, that usually means that communication suffers. Communication not only with other team members who may be halfway around the globe, but also communication across the abyss of time, as in future developer Pat not remembering what past developer Pat was thinking when they wrote that code. Who did that? Oh, I did? Daily stand-ups or scrums can convey information to the immediate group working on one part of the system being developed today. This is a keyhole view of the system. The daily stand-up or scrum should result in action items if there are barriers to getting things done. The action items must be identified, recorded, assigned, and perhaps estimated. Resistance to documenting these indicates an immature organization, or maybe just immature developers. Documents are all of the written materials produced. Specifications are formally imposed documents that are binding in some manner. Because software is always part of a larger system and the other parts of the system constrain how or even whether the software works. Critical systemic information needs to be recorded and kept current. It needs to be findable by those who need it. Tribal knowledge is only good if the tribe stays together. The mandates and constraints under which the system is built need to be specified, written down somewhere. They may be specified in a contract for the work being done or for an internal project written into the project plan. In any case, mandatory constraints on the system must be documented so that team members know them and can use them to make decisions.
The customer user-oriented software requirements exist to ensure agreement among the developers, customers, and end users about what is being built. These requirements must communicate effectively among the various stakeholders in the process, especially the non-technical stakeholders. They must be free of jargon. Developer-oriented software documentation provides necessary information to the developers, quality assurance, and DevOps specialists and tends to be technical in nature. These include development standards, and the development organization should have them. For example, which configuration management system shall be used and what should be the format of a check-in needs to be standardized, and that standard communicated to the development team. That kind of arcana is useless information to the customer or end user, but project management and the technical staff need to know this to be effective in developing the system. This information is unrelated to the application itself and does not depend on how well it works. It relates to how well it will be built and maintained. Crossing the chasm. At some point, a SaaS business will hope to cross the chasm. It's a marketing concept, meaning growing beyond the set of early adopters and scaling for a more extensive customer base. The early, late majority customer base will not be as tolerant as the early adopters. When the time comes for the business to cross the chasm, the project needs to do what I call crossing the swamp. That is the process of scaling the solution for a much larger customer base with much higher expectations of product quality. Depending on how well engineered the project is, technically, that process might be easy or not. If the team has had the foresight to position the technology correctly, then it may still be difficult, but with the suitable materials will be at hand to successfully cross from solid ground to solid ground. If not, then the project may be Atreyu and the product Artax, crossing the swamps of sadness. Artax didn't actually make it across the swamp.
That ends Chapter 5. Join us next time for Episode 14, Part 1 of Chapter 6. How exactly are we building it? Analysis and design. That's it for me, for you, for now. Be careful out there. Bye.